Good afternoon. We have been working quite a while in this room, trying to get the technology going. I hope you can hear me. Do I sound like I'm on a microphone here? Okay, we thought we had everything, but we didn't. So, Amy, do you have any introductory words, or do we just jump right in?
Your presenter today is Jane Lindemuth. She has immersed herself in this whole topic, and she's got a lot to share with us today. So I'm pretty excited about it. There you go.
Thank you. So we are looking at poetry, the big read, which has been a challenge for a lot of us. It's not generally something we go to, poetry, for our big read books. Amy and I have presented 3 other big reads with prose novels, which were a lot of fun. So when I started looking into American Sunrise, I have to say that the first time I read the book, I was kind of confused. And I thought, all right, I need to figure out how to present this so that you are thrilled with it, because I have become thrilled with it. And it has been over the course of not just reading it once and saying good enough. So as maybe you can see as you look at, well, you Zoom people, I'm sorry, around the room, Amy has put together 6 beautiful posters. We're going to talk about those as we read the poems. Also, I'm going to start with a short video that is a bit of an introduction for Joy Harjo. Actually, Susan's starting the video. It's the one that has
We changed the order at the last minute, so.
it's Doorway of Hope.
Okay.
And this will be a good introduction, just to give you some insight. While Susan is working on bringing this up, I just
There's
want.
a fresh voice.
Oh,
these
there we
days
are.
leading the poetry.
We're
Perfect.
good.
Yeah, we're
Sorry
good.
about that, guys. This is going to be a little tricky, but I'm going to go ahead and maximize the screen and we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Joy Harjo is the first Native American to serve as poet laureate. Tonight, she'll give her inaugural public video at the Library of Congress. She's a member of the Muscogee Creek Nation who grew up in Oklahoma. Jeffrey Brown recently sat down with Harjo in Tulsa to talk about her life and career. Part of our ongoing series on arts and culture, Canvas.
A recent night at the Oklahoma Jazz Hall of Fame in Tulsa. The leader of the band, blowing her saxophone, is a poet. His feet are made of his mother's spiritual concern. And not just any poet. Joy Harjo, a member of the Muscogee Creek Nation, is the new poet laureate of the United States. Appointed by the Library of Congress to begin her term this month.
It's quite an honor, and what is especially exciting to me for it is that I'm carrying this for America, but for Indigenous peoples in particular.
You feel that?
Yes, and it becomes a doorway. Yes, we're human beings, and yes, some of us are poets, some of us are astronauts, some of us are really good at fixing cars, but we're human beings, and some of us aren't poets. And so it meets the doorway of hope.
So people were surprised when you moved home, huh?
Yeah, they were.
Harjo, now 68, grew up here in Tulsa in a mixed Native and white working class neighborhood. child of a beautiful mother of mixed Cherokee and European ancestry who loved to sing, and a handsome Creek father Harjo adored, but whose drinking would lead to the end of the marriage. Does it make sense when you look back to that girl then to now?
But she still has the same loves that I do. You know, there's still music. I love poetry. I never thought I'd be a poet. I mean, that is certainly, if you look at his name, that wasn't a career. There are no poets here.
In her memoir, Crazy Grave, Harjo writes of a childhood of joy and discovery, but also great pain, including a stepfather who abused her mother and eventually pushed Harjo to leave home for the Institute of American Indian Arts, then an all-native secondary school in Santa Fe. A teenage mother, she later attended the University of New Mexico, where she was involved in the 60s and early 70s Native rights movement. Art was her first love. She continues to draw and paint to this day. Poetry didn't come until her 20s.
Poetry came along at that time. I basically put a pen in my hand, and that's how I came to it. And it had a lot to do with investigating history and finding a voice when I felt that I had no voice.
She would go on to write 9 volumes of poetry, including the brand new American Sunrise, often examining personal, native, and national histories bound together. She traces her ancestors to the once thriving indigenous civilization that populated the southeastern U.S. before being forcibly removed. Harjo recently taught at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, where she wrote the poems for her new book, including the line, "I returned to see what I would find in these lands we were forced to leave behind."
I'd come there and we were living up on a bluff that my great-great-great-great-grandfather, my uncle, had moved to sit there when he used to go to Knoxville to steal horses. So they weren't really stealing them because the horses were on stolen property. And I looked down into the beautiful trees towards those beautiful mountains. Asked. I heard my spirit ask, what did you do? And that's how it started. I know I came here with my dad.
In Oklahoma, Harjo took us to the historic Creek Council House in Okmulgee, what became the capital of the displaced nation in 1867. A plaque outside commemorates another distant relative, Samuel Shikoto, who was born in Alabama and served as principal chief of the Creek Nation here. This is a history that most people probably don't know.
No,
The whole removal, the trail here.
now usually I think most Americans think the trail of tears is one trail and it's Cherokee. But there are many trails of tears. Even the Navajo people have trails of tears. Now there's a little trail of tears coming up.
So you connect those, what's going on now at the border to
Definitely. Because there was no border before. It wasn't that long ago. Just a few generations. This was the House of Warriors, which is more like Congress.
There's the continuity of history, which we explored inside the council house, now a cultural center.
It's also one of the more well-known native poets of his time. He's often published in some of the anthologies of, yes, of course.
And there's the world we live in today, where Harjo has a residency in a Tulsa arts program, and among many other things is editing a new anthology of native poets. You came of age at this moment of very strong political movement, right? Civil rights. And I wonder where we are now.
Back to the beginning.
Backwards.
Yes. These times are very similar to the times of Andrew Jackson, the times of Indian removal. Or hatred, utter hatred. Not everything. It's not everything. In fact, I think those forces of hatred are really a relatively small part of the population. But whatever this force is, it's the same force that said natives weren't humans. It's the same force that humans said, well, you are more powerful if you have more money than anyone else. But if you're more powerful if you can fight skin, or you're more powerful if you're male. There's something about that that's destructive to everyone. Because we were all created by a creator who loved us.
Native rights, women's rights, poetry, music, which she didn't take up seriously until the 40s, and a sense of history.
History is people. History is stories. It's poetry. And that's what I love about poetry, and that's how poetry teaches me. Poetry has taught me that you can time travel in a poem. You can get to know people in a poem. And poetry is the place you can come to when you have no words.
And when the performance is over, the sax-playing, history-seeking poet laureate relaxes by shaking it all out on the dance floor. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Jeffrey Brown in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Tip. Thank you, Susan. So in putting together the things that I wanted to show you today, I loved when I found that little recap of Joy Harjo. Some of the things she says, the memories, the time travel, the coming back, the don't come back, it's going to hurt. What will I find here? What will I learn here? One of the things that Amy actually discovered is that it says a few times, oh, I'm sorry, I'm probably supposed to be standing here. It says a few times within the poems that the poem was inspired by T.C. Cannon, an artist. And so just to help us all along with kind of getting our whole self around this poetry, I have just taken some pictures out of the book to put on the screens just for you to kind of get a feel, because even these paintings are not the paintings that I think of the Indians riding into the, with their feathers and their ponies. These are a little bit different kind of look at Native Americans. So I'm just going to have Susan, or do I know how to do this, Susan?
No, we're good.
Okay, we're good. This is the painter. This is T.C. Cannon. From there, okay. And I have the names of these, but just look at the paintings. This one is called Indian Man. This one is called Mama and Papa Have the Going Home to Shiprock Blues. We have a little piece of poetry in our book called that, and it is on page 48. Oh, no. I am going to have to look that up again. That is not the page. I am sorry. Number 4. And I looked at that and thought it was a man and a woman. This is called Big Beau's Children. This was painted in 1976. That Shiprock Blues was painted in 1966. The next poem, Woman in the Window, thank you, is painted in 1975. Again, Woman in the Window, maybe not exactly the vision we would have. Study that a little bit, look at the trees in the background. The Shiprock Blues, I'm going to go back to, is on page 37. I don't know where I got 48. Mama and Papa Have the Going Home Shiprock Blues from T.C. Cannon. Song 1, Beef Issue at Fort Sill. We were corralled then like horses, like captives like slaves. We were anything but horses, captives and slaves, but we were hungry. Oh, a little further away. Thanks, Amy. This one, interestingly enough, is called A Remembered Muse. And it's saying Tosca, listening to some classical music and reacting to it. This one, simply Man in the Wicker Chair. This one, Kiowa Apache Youth, painted 1976. This one, Chief Watching. This Red Cloud, friends, it has been our misfortune to welcome the white man. We have been deceived. He brought with him some shining things that pleased our eyes. He brought weapons more effective than our own. Above all, he brought the spirit water that makes one forget old age, weakness, and sorrow. This is not a painting from T.C. Cannon. It's just something that was put in. Okay, so now what I would like us to do, and this is as a group for our discussion, is I know you, those of you on Zoom are not going to be able to see the whole room, but we will read these posters to you. And I thought maybe you people participating, we could start at these posters, because what you're learning from Joy's talk is the memories, the going back, the repetition of history, the history that brought her to write this book. And as we look at these posters and hopefully read these, I think that we can relate them to some of the poems in the American Sunrise. Would anybody like to read the first poster? And you might have to go right over to the first poster so that you can see it.
Sorry.
At the beginning of the 1830s, nearly 125,000 Native Americans lived on millions of acres of land in Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, North Carolina, and Florida, land their ancestors had occupied and cultivated for generations. White settlers wanted to grow cotton. Working on the behalf of the settlers, in 1832, President Andrew Jackson took on the Indian problem by forcing the Indians to leave their homelands and walk hundreds of miles to a specially designated Indian territory across the Mississippi. This difficult and deadly journey is known as the Trail of Tears. Indian removal occurred in the northern states as well. In Illinois and Wisconsin, for example, the bloody Black Hawk War of 1832 opened to white settlement millions of acres of land that had belonged to the Sauk, Fox, and other native nations.
Anybody want to read the second one? You want to talk about it?
Absolutely. Yes. So when you go into your book of poems, when you go into your poetry, if we go just even before the poems, on the very first introductory page, it talks about President Andrew Jackson. It talks about how the Indians were driven away like livestock at gunpoint. Joy then adds the indigenous peoples who are making their way up from the southern hemisphere are a continuation of the Trail of Tears. In that little excerpt we saw, the Indian removal wasn't just a thing that happened to the Indians. We still are living with people being moved, being herded, being corralled. And if we go back to the Shiprock Blues on page 37 and the beef issue at Fort Sill, it kind of is talking about, we were corralled then like horses, like captives, like slaves. We were anything but horses, captives, and slaves, but we were hungry. They were being fed whatever was given to them, these Indians who were so proud and so brave and so unwilling to leave their homelands, but they were hungry and they were being treated like cattle and horses and slaves. Any comments? Next poster. Quick history, Indian religious freedom.
American Indian residential schools were established in the United States during the 1800s through the mid-1900s to civilize or assimilate Native American children and youth into Euro-American culture. In the process, these schools denigrated Native American culture and made children give up their languages and religion. At the same time, the schools provided a basic education in Euro-American subjects. The schools were established by Christian missionaries of various denominations. Until the passage of the Indian Religious Freedom Act in 1978, it was illegal for Native citizens to engage in cultural practices. The Indian religion has no name because it's part of all Indian life. Before the coming of the new people, this was our paradise right here in America. Everything natural comes from God and is made by Him. God is in you and part of you. The Bible and our own religion are closely related. The only difference is that we practice and live ours every day. Ernie Peters, Dakota. Good comment.
Yeah. That last paragraph was a quote. The quote is by Ernie Peters, Dakota Indian. The Indian religion has no name because it's part of all Indian life. Before the coming of the new people, this was our paradise right here in America. Everything natural comes from God and is made by Him. God is in you and part of you. The Bible and our own religion are closely related. The only difference is that we practice and live ours every day.
Thank you. So here's a little page to turn to in your book, and this is page 15. And this is part of a longer poem, but it goes with that poster a little bit, and there are other poems here that go with that poster a little bit, and this is just a section of a longer poem. It says, the old Muskogee laws outlawed the Christian religion because it divided the people. We, who are relations of panther, raccoon, deer, and the other animals and the winds, were soon divided. But Muskogee ways are to make relatives. We made a relative of Jesus, gave him a Muskogee name. Next poster, and this is in our book, Singing Everything, on page 53. And as Joy has kind of said in her little entry there, the song, the poems, the songs, Singing Everything, and this is in our book. Would someone like to read this? You can come to the poster or you can read from your chair.
See if this doesn't remind you of something from the Bible. It does remind me of that.
Singing Everything. Once there were songs for everything. Songs for planting, for growing, for harvesting, for eating, getting drunk, falling asleep, For sunrise, birth, mind break, and war. For death, those are the heaviest songs, and they have to be pried from the earth with shovels of grief. Now all we hear are falling in love songs and falling apart after falling in love songs. The earth is leaning sideways, and a song is emerging from the floods and fires. Urgent tendrils lift toward the sun. You must be friends with silence to hear. The songs of the guardians of silence are the most powerful. They are the most rare.
Thank you. And there is a poem that might go a little bit with this one. This one's in your book, but the other poem that I'm thinking of is on page 68. It's called Honoring. And as we're learning, one of the things Amy and I talked about today when we met prior to this class, just to make sure that we were on the same page on things, which I already lost a page there earlier. That the white people, it's not just the Indians that ran up against the white people. It's like we just kind of march through our lives. Boom, boom, boom. It's got to be this way and this way and this way and this way. And joy reminds us in so many beautiful ways that there are other ways, better ways. The poem Honoring. Who sings to the plants that are growing for our plates? Are they gathered lovingly in aprons or arms? Or do they suffer the fate of the motor-driven whip of the monster reaper? No song at all, only the sound of money being stacked in a bank, who stitch the seams in my clothes, one line after another. Was the room sweaty and dark with no hour to spare? Did she have enough to eat? Did she have a home anywhere? Or did she live on the floor? And where were the children? Or was the seamstress the child with no home of his or her own? Who sacrifices to make clothes for strangers in another country? And why? Let's remember to think of the grower of food, the picker, the driver, the sun, and the rain. Let's remember to thank each maker of stitch and layer of pattern and dyer of color in the immense house of beauty and pain. Let's honor the maker. Let's honor what's made. Beautiful words. Next poster. Sioux Soldier Sold.
Yeah. Sioux Soldier Soul. Okay. Yes, it is page 40. Page 40.
Okay, there is the law of the Creator, which tells us, do not take what is not yours to take. Do not take more than you can use. Respect life and the giver of life. Give back. Defend your people when there is need for defense. And when a people strip your spirit of your body and sells your red skins for bounty, then they are the ones who have broken the law.
Amy and I are going to do a little back and forth reading. It is on page 79. Advice for countries advanced, developing, and falling. A call and response. A country is a person.
A country is a noun to be bought and sold. I have a deed.
The ruler's disposition and rules determine the state of being for all constituents.
Each state governs itself without respect for individuals. It's everyone for themselves.
Power is dangerous when wielded in the hands of one. It is meant to be shared.
I was given this position by cunning, by money, by sex, by family, by God. It belongs to me and no one else.
We cannot own anyone else, people, the lands, or resources. We are here to care for each other.
We are right. We build walls to keep anyone who is not like us out of here. God gave us these lands. We separate children and cage them because they are breaking our God's law.
Every increment of any thought, action, or deed matters, has consequences in all directions.
Not if you can make a law, not if it passes the Supreme Court, not if we can pay for it.
There will be no balance without all voices present in the power circle.
You will never earn your way here. You are the wrong sex, the wrong color of skin, wrong sexual orientation, not my religion, not my language.
We are making our grandchildren's world with our words. We perceive a world in which everyone sits at the table together with enough for everyone.
We will make this country great again.
Food for thought once again. And Amy, there is another back and forth, which I think we'll do right now. And this one is on page 74. First question. Can you first govern yourself?
Second question, what is the state of your own household?
Third question. Do you have a proven record of community service and compassionate acts?
Fourth question, do you know the history and laws of your principalities?
Fifth question. Do you follow sound principles? Look for fresh vision to lift all the inhabitants of the land, including animals, plants, elements, all who share this earth.
Sixth question, are you owned by lawyers, bankers, insurance agents, lobbyists, or other politicians? Anyone else who would unfairly profit by your decisions?
Seventh question. Do you have authority by the original keepers of the lands, those who obey natural law and are in service of the lands on which you stand? And that is called for those who would govern. Maybe the book is getting a little better. I had a couple comments about people being lost with this book because it is just so different. But to have a little bit of the back story opens up, I believe, for myself, so many windows. In fact, I have been so taken by the book that I had my husband find Dances with Wolves for me the other night, one of my favorite movies from years ago that I've never forgotten. And I watched it this time around a little differently. Next poster. A little short one. And this is this a page, Amy?
Page 42. Let them eat grass.
42, let them eat grass. Amy, I might have you read it. You're right there. How is this working for this one?
Oh, cool. Let them eat grass. What we speak always returns with a spike of barbs or the sweet taste of berries in summer. Does it remind you of Proverbs? Yeah. And this one reminds me of Song of Solomon and Ecclesiastes. There's,
again, if you just go through the poems, read, which the first time I went through the book, I was kind of like, okay, what is this? What is this? What is this? There's so much white space on these pages. Is this supposed to be a thought? Is this supposed to be? And then when you go and you read it again and you think of it, how many times have we ever kicked ourselves? Oh, I said the wrong thing. Oh, I hurt somebody's feelings. Oh, I wish I could go back. I wish I could fix it. And too late. And this is what Joy is saying when she goes back to memories. You know, I mean, the memories are the memories, but how much power we have to give berries instead of barbs, how much power we have to give sweetness instead of pain. Lot to think about. Next poster is right here. Quick history, Wounded Knee. Do I have another person who wants to read up here? Yay. Okay, here we go. Thank you.
Wounded Knee, a community located on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in southwestern South Dakota, was the site of two conflicts between North American Indians and representatives of the U.S. government. An 1890 massacre by federal troops left 150 Native Americans dead. In 1973, members of the American Indian Movement occupied Wounded Knee for 71 days to protest conditions on the reservation. A negotiated settlement was reached. In a subsequent trial, the judge ordered the acquittal of members of the tribe because of evidence that the FBI had manipulated key witnesses. The incident gave national attention to the problems of modern Native Americans.
So those are our posters. And as a little trip into the book, I think these are touch points so that maybe as we look at the poems, read the poems, talk about the poems, there's some history here to latch on to make them more meaningful. And I just had a thought that went through my head. I was going to tell you something brilliant, but it's already gone. What I have done with several things that I want to talk about here, going to the beginning of the book. And I thought at one point, oh, we should just go right through the book and talk about poems, but I don't work that way. I just, it's back and forth, because if we go to the exile of memory, and Susan, does this just work like?
You know what? I will help you.
Oh, okay.
You all did a
Perfect.
great job with the audio. Now, can adjust it a little bit, but that's
Okay, this is good. This is good. Going back to the front of the book, and again, and I'm just saying this to those of you, and is evidenced by, I don't know how many people are out there on Zoom, but is evidenced by the people coming. And I went to a Jack Riddle poetry talk the other night, and there weren't a lot of people there. And I think that the poetry presentation has been a challenge. And really, since we're all adults and most of us are, retired adults, and we don't really have to do anything we don't want to do. And so we say, I don't need to do this. And after I got into the book and I said, why am I doing this? But I have to say, I have thrilled to the wisdom that has come out of this book to me. And as you heard Joy talking and saw her, I mean, she's kind of laid back, she just speaks so calmly, she plays her saxophone. I love who she is and who she represents. And the first poem called Break My Heart, and then we go to page 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10. I mean, this is a tricky poem. Exile of Memory. Page 6. Do not return. We were warned by one who knows things. You will only upset the dead. They will emerge from the spiral of little houses lined up in the furrows of marrow and walk the land. There will be no place in memory for what they see. The highways, the houses, the stores of interlopers perched over the blood fields where the dead last stood. And then what? You with your words in the enemy's language. Do you know how to make a peaceful road through human memory? And what of angry ghosts of history? Then what? And this goes on that, you know, and Joy, as she goes through the book, she talks about the spirits of her ancestors and how she feels them and relates to them. And she's going back now to the historical history of, well, yeah, historical history, I guess, for the history of her people, the Trail of Tears, the removal. She wants to go back. And one of the things that she says, and what she said when in the little video clip was, what did you learn? What will you find? What did you learn? And the line here, there will be no place in memory for what they see, the highways, the houses, the stores of interlopers perched over the blood fields. This was Indian land. And to call the spirits back, to go back, to in memory, engage the ancestors, don't go back. There is nothing there anymore that used to be. The beauty of the land, the talking to the plants, the loving of the trees, the animals. No, we've been there with bulldozers. We put in rows, we've planted our own stuff, houses and shopping malls. So this little piece right here, and this is where I'm going to give you a little look at maybe how this book works. She starts out by saying, this is going to be a tough deal. Then the top of page 7, we're still in the same poem. We don't have a new title yet. We're still working in Exile of Memory. Don't look back. And she talks about Lot's wife. Turn the page. Page 8, I did not know what I would find. The first night we set up our bed in the empty room of our condo above the Tennessee River, they had heard we were coming, those who continue to keep the land despite the imposition of newcomers and the forced exile of our relatives. All night they welcomed us, all night the stomp dancers, all night the shell shakers, all night circle after circle made a spiral to the Milky Way. And here they are in the modern world, but she feels, maybe sees and hears all night. The dancers came. And she has, and I have this here, I'm going to share some of this with you, an album called Journey Through the Milky Way. And so we'll get back to this. And then we're not done with the poem yet, because the next page says, we are still in mourning. And this is kind of a reference to the Native American Trail of Tears, many trails of tears. But as she mentioned in that introduction, the Trail of Tears now that we have at our border. And the last line is, as they were lined up to sleep alone in their army issued cages. Joy says we haven't made a lot of progress. Next page, we're not at the end of the poem yet. Grief is killing us, anger tormenting us, sadness eating us with disease. Our young women are stolen, raped, and murdered. Our young men are killed by the police or killing themselves and each other. And there are poems in here too that talk about the Indian reservations, the young men, the alcoholics, the heroin, the attic users, the women who have been stolen and killed, raped. This is now. Next page. This is a warning. Heroin is a food companion offering freedom from the gauntlet of history. Meth speeds you past it. Alcohol, elixir of false bravado, will take you over the edge of it. Enough chemicals and processed craving, and you can't push away from the table. If we pay enough, maybe we can buy ourselves back. The poem keeps going. We used to crowd, next page, 12, we used to crowd the bar for Tuesday 10-cent beer night. Next page, in the complex here, there is a singing tree. The next page, page 14, when it is time to leave this place of return, what will I say I found here? And this is a question she asked too in that introduction. What did you learn? What did you find here? From out of the mist, a form wrestled to come forth. It was many-legged, of many arms, and sent forth thoughts of many colors. There were deer standing near us under the parted, misted sky as we watched. They smelled for water. Light green entered their bodies. From all leaved things, they ate. And then is the piece I already read about the religion. And then we keep going, page 16. We could not see our ancestors as we climbed up to the edge of destruction, but from the dark, we felt their soft presence at the edge of our mind, and we heard their singing. There is no word in this trade language, no words with enough power to hold all this we have become. We are in time. There is no time in time. We are in a traditional Muskogee village far back in time. Ekfunuchibah is in labor so long in time. She is not young and beyond the time of giving birth. The keeper of birthing is tracking her energy and time. My thinking is questioning how this time. Turn the page. A young boy wrestles with two puppies. Next page. I sing my leaving song. I will sing it until the day I die. Now, if you tried to read this and you didn't know, and I didn't know when I first read this book, this is all exile of memory. And these are all pieces of exile of memory. And they're powerful. And if you take them, and as Jack Riddle said, when I listened to Jack talk, we try to plow our way through a poem. We try to figure out, what does this poem mean? And this poem means whatever you take away from it. Don't try to find some meaning that is way out there. Jack talked about an owl feather. He says a poet gives you an owl feather, and you make an owl with the words and the ideas that come as you read the words. There's a little tickle, there's a little feather, there's a little something in the poem. And I'm giving all credit to Jack because I love the way he does things. And if you don't know Jack, he is a resident poet at Hope College, and he is a famous poet. He has created a number of books. And he said, you crawl through a poem. You don't stomp through a poem or run through a poem or take a scythe and hack your way through a poem. You crawl through a poem. And if it doesn't work, you leave it alone and come back to it. So this is hopefully my help a little bit for you as you are looking at how this is all put together. However, there are a zillion other things. So when we talk about time and how Joy just mentioned about going back in time, bending time, on page 100, there's kind of a long prose piece. I'm not even going to pretend this is a poem. This is a prose piece. And Joy goes back all the time to her grandfather, her great-grandfather, her great-great-great-grandfather, the feeling of him in her life and the listening to him and the listening to her ancestors. And as you're going to page 100, I would venture to say that you might have really loved washing my mother's body, the honoring of those who have gone before us and the love. One March, a few years back, I was in a residence at a private women's college in Atlanta. I'd heard of a gathering to be held at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend grounds, which is not far from Opelika, Alabama. Many from our Muskogee Creek Nation were being bussed in from Oklahoma. I wanted to see family and friends and to once again visit homeland territory. I took a few students with me. It was a strange set of events positioned on the anniversary of the battle, in which was essentially a massacre. We Muskogee citizens came to acknowledge that we are very present in the continuum of time and to give honor to our ancestors. That battle did not destroy us. We tribal descendants danced, spoke, visited, and some people had booths demonstrating culture and arts. Euro-American reenactors and descendants dressed up in military uniforms, paraded guns, and shot off cannons. They were preparing for a reenactment of the killing. Late afternoon, I drove the students back to their campus in Atlanta. They quickly dozed in the back seat as I wound through the back roads to catch the main highway to Atlanta. I noted a sign, 90 miles to Atlanta. Then I heard the rhythm sound of a running horse coming up behind me. I smelled the sweat of human and horse as the breathy team caught up. I saw my grandfather astride the horse. What a rider he was, just as I had been told in all the stories. I remembered that my Aunt Lois Harjo told me how Mojave could bend time. He could arrive at a destination on horseback long before it was physically possible. And as quickly as he had come, he was gone. And I saw a traffic sign, 30 miles to Atlanta. I'd only been on that road for a few minutes. My grandfather had come back to show me how he folded time. The old ones will always tell you, your ancestors keep watch over you. Listen to them. I love that one. And when I read it the first time, it was all, oh, come on. But then when I kept studying and going back and learning and bending of time, and in the book, she talks about the spiraling of time, the spiral. And we are so busy being who we are, where we are right now, that I don't know, for myself, I would say, my mom, my grandma, I don't go very far back in time. My history, my ancestral line has never been, and pardon me, mom and dad and grandma and grandpa, never been honored the way that it's honored for Joy, and I would say her tribes people, her Native Americans to honor that, to feel, to know. And when she says, they watch over us, they take care of us, I would bet that we have all had instances where we have physically, mentally, spiritually, maybe just a passing wind, felt that somebody who loves us, loved us, still cares about it. Maybe we never laid eyes on this person or spirit, is somehow watching over us. I love the thought. And really, don't you wish you could just say, just, okay, watch over me, come and fix this? I don't think they do that. They just kind of pass through. But it is the most comforting thought. So I just wanted to say that to you. And the time spiral, how interesting was that? When her grandfather came, just as the way the stories were told. He was a magnificent rider. He came galloping up on her horse. She could smell it. She could hear it. She could feel it. And 60 miles. Gracie. Wait. We probably need to do this for you.
Yeah, you can.
Sorry.
I was thinking so many of our relatives are coming from Europe. We don't have that ancestry like this lady has. And I like what our Canadian friends say. They call them the First Nation. And it's true because their ancestors were all here long before us. And they have that connection that many of us would have to cross the ocean in order to connect. So I think her feel is so much different than many of ours.
Beautiful question. I think you're right. That the First Nation, that in fact, yes, they have been on this land is their land. I think if we want to be magical, which I kind of love that, those spirits, if they need to, can probably go up a time spiral and manage. But even if it's a grandfather, even if it's a great grandfather from this land, yeah, good point. So now I think that I would like to try to access my Milky Way. Susan's going to help me do this. Are we using my phone or are we using this?
It's the music?
It's the Milky Way.
Okay, everybody at home, thanks for your patience on the first one. Jane is going to bring up on her phone the Milky Way, and we tested this earlier, and we're able to, famous last words, test.
Okay, and let's just do this one first, and then we can work into the. I'm just going to have that in the background for a minute because this is Joy's one of her CDs, one of her albums, and it's called Winding Through the Milky Way. And again, this is a discovery I made when I was so intimidated about doing this book and trying to pull things together. And lo and behold, I love this album. But I'm just putting this in the background for now. It's, you can hear the rhythms. just an idea of something on that album. But what I want you to listen to is Rabbit is Up to Tricks. And you might remember Rabbit invents the saxophone, which is in your book. So this is a little lead up to that. Oh, it's right here.
In a world long before this one, there was enough for everyone until somebody got out of line. We heard it was Rabbit fooling around with clay in the wind. Everybody was tired of his tricks, and no one would play with him. He was lonely in this world. So Rabbit thought to make a person. And when he blew into the mouth of that crude figure to see what would happen, the clay man stood up. Rabbit showed the clay man how to steal a chicken. The clay man obeyed. Then Rabbit showed him how to steal corn. The clay man obeyed. Then he showed him how to steal someone else's wife. The clay man obeyed. Rabbit felt important and powerful. The clay man felt important and powerful. And once that clay man started, he could not stop. Once he took that chicken, he wanted all the chickens. And once he took that corn, he wanted all the corn. And once he took that wife, he wanted all the wives. He was insatiable. Then he had a taste of gold, and he wanted all the gold. Then it was land or anything else he saw. His wanting only made him want more. Soon it was countries, and then it was trade. Any thought, action, or dream rubs up against everyone else. The wanting infected the earth. We lost track of the purpose and reason for life. We began to forget our songs. We forgot our stories. We could no longer see or hear our ancestors or talk with each other across the kitchen table. Now, Rabbit couldn't find a drink of fresh water. Forests were being mowed down all over the world. The earth was being destroyed to make more, and Rabbit had no place to play. Rabbit's trick had backfired. And now his clay man was too consumed to run with him. Rabbit tried to call the clay man back. But when the clay man wouldn't listen, Rabbit realized he'd made a clay man with no ears. Chihoto Chazare China Lagare Mamai Come Awajkan Opi Yakatlis Alwen. Do not get tired. Don't be discouraged. Be determined to welcome him. We will go to the highest point.
Okay, so I saw a lot of you with your eyes closed. Good story, huh? And such an allegory for you taught the clay man how to do all these things. And I would like the poem on 75, A Rabbit Invents the Saxophone. I don't know if you kind of thrilled with this poem or not. I thought this was the cutest poem. And Joy Harjo plays the saxophone, and you can hear the saxophone in the background of the story about the rabbit. And I wondered if in fact the rabbit is a part of the Muskogee myth stories. I did not research that part, but here's another wabbit. So would somebody like to read this? I love to read unless you guys are tired of listening to me. Oh, sorry, 75. You want to read it? Okay, I'll bring this to you. Wait. No, you need this for sure.
All righty. When one of the last trails of tears wound through New Orleans, Rabbit, that ragged trickster, decided he wanted to be a musician. He was tired of walking, and they all had all the fun. They got all the women. They were surrounded by fans who gave them smokes and drinks, and he could have all kinds of friends to do his bidding. But Rabbit hadn't proved to be musical. When he led a strong stomp dance, no one would follow. No shell shaker would shake shells for him. He was never invited to lead, even when the young ones were called up to practice. The first thing a magician needs is a band, he said to his friends. The hottest new music was being made at Congo Square. So many tribes were jamming there, African, Native, and a few remnant French. Maybe a new music of melody, love, and beat. Rabbit climbed up on the stage, but had nothing to offer, just his strut, charming banter, and what looked like a long stick down the right leg of his pants. Musicians are musicians. No trick will get by. You either have it or want it. Nothing else will fly. Do you know any songs? What can you play? Can you sing? Do you have a piano, tuba, or strings? Does it go on? Wow. The musicians began vamping. What can this rabbit do? Is he going to blow hot air or fart in the rain? Rabbit turned his back to the band, like that genius Miles Davis, pulled out his stick. He made a horn with his hands. The stick is so special, bragged Rabbit as he turned back to the jam. No one else has one like this. You've never heard it before. It's called a saxophone. Rabbit's newborn horn made a rip in the sky. It made old women dance and girls fall to their knees. It made singers of tricksters. It made tricksters of players. It made trouble wherever it sang after that. The last time we heard Rabbit was for my cousin's run for chief. There was a huge feed. Everyone showed up to eat. Rabbit's band got down after the speeches. We danced through the night and nobody fought. Nor did anyone show up the next day to vote. They were sleeping.
So there's a little, just a little move into another mindset. Just a great story. Rabbit, he wanted to be somebody. He invented the saxophone, and everybody became unable to function for all the fun they had. So that is a little foray into the rabbits. one of my questions for all of you, and then I have another video of Joy reading a poem that made that had a big influence on me, but I don't have it in the book. It's not in the book, but I think the words might be on the screen. I would like to ask you, maybe what are some of the how do you feel that this book has or could or would in the future affect your thinking, or how has it influenced your thinking about Native Americans, about Joy Harjo, about our poet laureate currently of the United States?
Should we invite the people at home to unmute themselves because then they'll hear?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Over the computer. So everyone at home, because we have a smaller group today, you're invited to unmute yourself during this time if you'd like to answer a question.
This is Sue Bolander. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I really loved this book. I spent a week at the Lakota Sioux Reservation in South Dakota about 10 years ago and learned about Native American life on a service trip. And I liked especially the poem with the directions to you. And it's follow them, stop, turn around, go the other way, left, right, mine, yours. We can be lost, unsteady. Take a deep breath, pray. You will not always be lost. You're right here in your time, in your place. And then she goes on to north and east and south and west. And then the very end, she says, to find, to be found, to be understood, to be seen, heard, felt. You are breath, you are memory. And I just thought that poem, and then in the next page it goes on, it's you are touch, you are right here. And that just poem touched me so much. And I didn't read the middle part, but maybe I should. The North Star guidance as we look up to the brightest white, hoping it leads you where you want to go, hoping that it knows where you should be. We find our peace here in the white, gather our strength, our breath, and learn how to be. In the east, the sun rises, red, morning heat on our face, even on the coldest morning. The sun creates life, energy, nourishment. Gather strength, pull it in, be right where you are. South, butterfly flits, spreads yellow beauty. We have come to this moment in time, step by step. We don't always listen to directions. We let the current carry us, push us, force us along the path. We stumble, get up, keep moving. And then west, sunset brings darkness, brings black. We find solitude, time to take in breath and to pray. Even in darkness, you can be found. Call out, even a whisper or a whimper, you'll be heard. I don't know, this poem just touched me in so many ways, and just telling us we are right where we are, and take time to breathe and be grateful for all the things that are around us. And I think the thing I learned that week I spent there is how reverent the Native Americans are for the earth that we live in. And they really want everything to live for 7 generations. So if they do anything, how will it affect 7 generations from now? And I think we barely think about the next day. So their reverence for nature and beauty and our natural resources is so intense. And I guess one of the other things I learned is we have so little respect for other ways of worshiping or knowing the Holy Spirit. And just because we have Christianity doesn't mean there isn't another way to honor the earth and the spirit. And so it's interesting how we kind of think almost there's only one way to be worshipful, and I think there are many. So thanks.
That was beautiful, Susan. Thank you. The poems, there are just so many that if you go back into the book now and maybe look over some of those poems again, they are just beautiful. And I do have this one last reading by Joy in a poem that talks about our spirit. I would like to leave you with that. Would any of you, does anybody else have something to add?
One poem in here called, one of the poems called Redbird Love was fascinating to me because I had watched a finch family on my porch. And all of the movements and what went on were depicted in her poem. And I guess that I've learned when I had time to took care of my mom, I had time to look outside the window and I watch animals, birds and things. I've always done it. And I think that's one of the things that Joy brings out always is so important, to be in tune with your surroundings, with nature and how we are connected.
Perfect. If I go through my book, it's like every third page has a big X or a big star or a big underline. I was concerned about the 90 minutes, but now, of course, as I was told, we could go for much longer. But yeah, the poems. Okay. Okay, great.
If you're unmuted at home, go ahead and speak. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that there was a little bit more room for somebody at home that had questions. There are some, we were chatting earlier. Looks like Ann Weller is saying, I like page 78, let there be no regrets. And with that, I will turn it back over to Jane.
Can we pull up that video? While we're going to pull up the little video, page 78, we can take a look at that.
So we did have a little bit of an issue with video last time, so I'm going to try something a little bit different.
Okay.
Is it conflict resolution?
I believe that. Well, I think it is the poem a day.
Okay.
We're checking this out here. Would somebody like to read Let There Be No Regrets while we work on this? Oh, no, I think we have it. Hang on.
Yeah, tell everybody, they can probably hear me, but
This is it.
people at home, I'm going to go ahead and try something a little different this time so that we can all see the video. So just hold on for just a moment.
No, I don't know if we're going to be able to see these
No,
words.
so
Okay.
My name is.
They're not able to see this at home.
Okay.
And again, it's sometimes we just don't know why Zoom does what Zoom does. So I have scraped that. I'm going to just try something a little different. And yeah. Okay, now they can, it looks like they can see it this time.
Okay, great.
I'm gonna try to make it as big as I can. And keep your fingers crossed for sound.
It's Joy Harjo, and I'm hunkered down here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right next door to the Oklahoma Jazz Hall of Fame.
This is the poet.
They have their doors closed. Everyone does right now to kind of stay in
Yes, Anne.
and think about things and remember. It's kind of a time to remember who we are. And I think the best poems do that. They remind us who we are, who we're becoming, and give us a sense of this journey we're on, all the ups and downs of it. And this poem I'm going to read for you is called "For Calling the Spirit Back from Wandering the Earth in Its Human Feet." And I think the best poems teach you, even if you're writing them. Sometimes I'm writing along and I think, oh, cool, where is that coming from? And sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing. But then it's given to me and I write and rewrite and engage with a poem, and then there it is. And I think the spirit of the poem and me we're all kind of stunned. But maybe this will be helpful. For calling the spirit back from wandering the earth in its human feet. Put down that bag of potato chips, that white bread, that bottle of pop. Turn off that cell phone, computer, and remote control. Open the door, then close it behind you. Take a breath offered by friendly winds. They travel the earth, gathering essences of plants to clean. Give it back with gratitude. If you sing, it will give your spirit lift to fly to the stars' ears and back. Acknowledge this earth who has cared for you since you were a dream, planting itself precisely within your parents' desire. Let your moccasin feet take you to the encampment of the guardians who have known you before time, who will be there after time, and they sit by the fire that has been there without time. Let the earth stabilize your post-colonial insecure jitters. Be respectful of the small insects, birds, and animal people who accompany you. Ask their forgiveness for the harm we humans have brought down upon them. Don't worry, the heart knows the way. Though there may be high-rises, interstates, checkpoints, armed soldiers, massacres, wars, and those who will despise you because they despise themselves. The journey might take you a few hours, a day, a year, a few years, 100, 1,000, or even more. Watch your mind without training. It might run away and leave your heart for the immense human feast set by the thieves of time. Do not hold regrets. When you find your way to the circle, to the fire kept burning by the keepers of your soul, you will be welcomed. You must clean yourself with cedar, sage, or other healing plant. Cut the ties you have to failure and shame. Let go the pain you are holding in your mind, your shoulders, your heart, all the way to your feet. Let go the pain of your ancestors to make way for those who are heading in our direction. Ask for forgiveness. Call upon the help of those who love you. These helpers take many forms. Call your spirit back. It may be caught in corners and creases of shame, judgment, and human abuse. You must call in a way that your spirit will want to return. Speak to it as you would a beloved child. Welcome your spirit back from its wandering. It may return in pieces and tatters. Gather them together. They will be happy to be found after having been lost for so long. Your spirit will need to sleep a while after it is bathed and given.
This is the video they played at the beginning that we couldn't
Now you
see.
can have.
Now we
more.
can.
Invite everyone you know who loves and supports you. Keep room for those who have no place else to go. Make a giveaway, and remember, keep the speeches short. Then you must do this. Help the next person find their way through the dark. Meadow, thank you.
Yes. Okay, a long poem. Thank you. I was doing so well. Okay, a long poem. It might have been a little hard to concentrate through all of that. I hope you had your eyes closed again until whatever happened, happened. Calling our spirit back. I never thought of that. I never thought of that. and it's tucked in corners and dark places. Maybe it's afraid, maybe we have to call it back like, oh, that's okay. We have to call it back like we would talk to a beloved child. That was another poem I found that I wanted to share. And on the video, it actually had the words underneath it. I didn't know that I couldn't get those on the screen also, so you had to listen real carefully. However, here's some stuff. Let's see. Okay. So no questions, just little chats. So I'm just pleased that you were all here. Are there, oh, yay, final comments. Thank you.
I just wanted to, is it picking it up?
I think so.
I just wanted to make a comment that I've been feeling the loss of my parents more of late because there's so many questions I've come up with in my life that I never approached them about because I didn't know about them. I mean, you don't, well, Dad, what did you do here? Or Mom, what was going on here? These were things of their life that were important and I never learned it. And I feel that I'm losing my children, that they may have questions to ask me, the same as I have to ask my parents who are now gone.
I think a lot of us can identify. I have thought so many things about my parents, what I didn't know, what I didn't know, what I didn't think to ask. And my children, our children are, oh, Mom, you've told us that story before. It's like, really? And so you try. But this book has kind of said to me that the spirits are there. The fact that I don't have all the itty bitty things, I have the things that are in my memory. And that's all that's all I have now, unless I come back in dreams.
I think that's something mankind has lost because the tribal thing of family has been broken. And you don't have them near, your grandparents aren't near your, so you don't hear the history of your family and the experiences which are shared in a group. But that's what we've made of ourselves. So we suffer from that.
We do suffer. We do suffer from that in our quest to conquer the world, to conquer the lands, to get everything we think we want. It cost us. We are at 2:30, and wow, I hope I helped with the book a little bit. It became special to me. Thank you. Thank you. I love that you were here. And I do have to say, I think are we off of?
We are not. We still have some people at home.
Oh, we still have people at home who want to say.
Normally I would be at my computer in a different room, but I can't do this simultaneously. But I do have a comment from Bill B. Thank you for doing this presentation. I don't know how I missed this poet all these years, but I have a better appreciation for her.
And Jane says, yay. Yay. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention that if any of you would like to see the accompanying children's book for the big read, we have 2 copies here that you may look at. And then the artwork of T.C. Cannon, there's more than what was able to be shown up there. If you're interested in his artwork, you're welcome to take a look at that. And the posters are up for grabs. So if anybody would like to take a poster home, maybe you have a use for it, we'd be happy to have you take it. And thank you, Jane.
And thank you, Amy.